Okay, on the Daryl Dixon motorcycle, I've had a few people ask questions on how to make the crossbow mount. I'm going to have to do some welding with this. And all the welding that I did was MIG welding. So it should be pretty straightforward. Once you've been able to do the hoop, the rest of this is a cakewalk actually. And it doesn't have to look good. In fact, I purposely made this thing look ugly. Here's how I built this guy. So the main piece, which is going to be the main support, instead of getting one big wide one, because I couldn't find one that big, I got some that were an inch wide, flat iron steel, 1/8 inch thick, cut it in half, or cut two pieces. Each one of these is precisely 10 inches long. All right, so you're going to get a piece of steel, flat steel, cut two 10-inch sections, then MIG weld them together. All right, so now you got one wide piece of steel that's going to end up being about almost 2.5 inches, 2.25 to 2.5 inches wide. All right. Next, once these two are joined together, then you want to make your sides. So you're really just kind of making a metal box, right? So you take your sides, which each one of these, as you can see, is about 3/4 of an inch wide, flat steel, and the end pieces I made at 2.5 inches to match the main pieces, and each one of these guys are going to be 10 inches. Okay. All right, and then I welded those so that I had a box. All right. Next, you got to make your support bracket for the motorcycle itself. To do that, you're gonna need 8-inch thick flat steel. Each one of these is 1 inch wide. All right. And what I did was first, I made a bracket to come off of the motorcycle. Now, when you're at Home Depot or Ace Hardware, you can certainly find, some flat steel pieces, with the holes in them. I looked at that and I didn't go with it. And the reason why is because of how heavy this is and bouncing around on the motorcycle. The pieces that are there are not 1/8 of an inch thick. They're pretty thin. So what I did was, it's a little bit of work, but it's not that major of a deal. I went ahead and got the 1/8 inch thick pieces that I was using for the rest of the motorcycle, cut some sections, drilled holes in them myself so it gave that look, like from the motorcycle itself, as you can see online. Then spray painted this one black and the other one black, and then left these steel colored, okay? And then rounded off the edges with my grinder, right? So you'll end up grinding these edges off so it's rounded. So for the pieces that come off the motorcycle that actually support it to the bike itself, when I go up underneath here, move the license plate out of the way, you can see that the black piece itself comes all the way along the bike to where I've got it mounted to the seat. So the seat brackets come down and hook on one of the holes, and I've got I ended up just, I don't know, I couldn't find anything else, so I used this black piece of, almost like a big black flat plastic washer for the seat itself, and then put a bolt through it, and then tighten that down. And this is basically my quick release for the seat itself. I want to take it off. So I start with one long piece of flat steel. It starts right back here, right back there in the end, okay, and then comes along all the way out to here, right out to about here, and do this on each side. So this length is going to end up being one and there out. You can pull out your fingers from the outside here. You're looking at about 9 inches. Okay, so about 9 inches to the end. All right, and you'll end up drilling 2 holes in here right above where the shocks meet the body. Okay, right below where the hoop is welded. The hoop is welded to the frame. So I drilled mine about maybe an inch below the center of the hoop. I don't think that's really going to matter. So drill 2 holes there on either side. Hack the end off. So you've already hacked the end off, and I filled this with some of that steel putty stuff, and then spray painted that. That's actually pretty awesome. All right, so you got your 9-inch piece of flat steel that is 1 inch wide, 1/8 inch thick. You drill some holes in it that I drilled about 1 inch off center from each one. Drill 2 holes in the frame. Put some bolts through here. Okay. Mount it with your nuts on the back side. Okay. Again, mount it with your 2 nuts. There's 1, 2 nuts right back here. Now your bracket's on. Use your third one, your next one in line for your seat. And the seat's going to come and have a bolt holding the seat on. Right? So now I can take my seat off pretty easily if I need to, without messing anything else up, taking this bracket off. All right? So now that you got your 2 brackets on, you come back to the end, and if you look online, there's a hole in between on the show bike. There is a hole in between the 2 mounts. So now from here back, I take another 1/8 inch thick steel piece and I run it to the end. You're looking at about the one that I did. If you look at this real close, from here all the way to underneath, you're looking at about a distance of about 6.5 inches. All right. Now, when you look at the show bike itself, it curves up. So it comes in and then curves up to support the actual final bracket piece, the support for the crossbow. All right. So to do that, what I did was I took this flat piece, all right, put it up the distance that I wanted, which is about 6 inches or so. Then I took another piece right up in here. Just gonna get something to point with this better. Okay, so right up top in here. All right, and I got another little piece because you don't have the distance here. So cut it to match basically for the long support main bracket. Put a small piece up here, which was square, welded those together, and then took my grinder to it and started grinding out this until I had a nice curved piece up there. And over here doesn't matter so much, but ground it so it was kind of flat on there. So I've got, at the end, I took 2 pieces of steel, and then one section at the very end, welded that on. So I've got a piece here and then a piece coming out the end, and then chopped it off with a Sawzall as best I could, then took my grinder to it and then just rounded this up, okay? And then welded the body of the box, so to speak, for the support of the crossbow to the support brackets. So when I take this thing off, this whole thing is one piece welded to this section here, okay? All right, then after you do that, I went ahead and unwrapped one of these guys so you could actually see it. So to hold the crossbow on, when you look at the show bike, there are 4 things that stick up that look like they're wrapped in some type of tape. All right. So to make that, what I found at Ace Hardware, if you take a photo of this and take it to Ace Hardware, you can find these. What I found at Ace Hardware is there's these little black stoppers they have back in their bolt section, and I got 2 different sizes, right? And it really doesn't matter the size so much, but you'll figure it out when you're in there. But you can see that this guy is about maybe an inch, about an inch, maybe a little less than an inch across the top. There are 2 of these, 1, 2, 1, 2, okay? And on the bottom, it's a little bit more than an inch. It might be actually an inch at the bottom and then a little bit less here. And then this top one is about maybe 3/4 of an inch below this bolt. So I got 2 of those, made sure that they stacked on top of each other. So, made like a little cone with a flat top on it. Took my drilled a 1/4 inch hole from the top all the way through the 2 of them together. And ran a long bolt from the bottom. Right? From the underside to the bolts, okay, up to the top, put a washer on the top, and then took a nut on here, and then just basically tighten this guy down until this was solid. Actually, this works better like this than it does with the tape on it for the show. But the show bike has the brown tape on it. So then what you do is you wrap it up. And I took the tape off here so you can see that. And now I'll wrap these guys back up. So, bought on, I actually did get it at Ace, yeah. Closest thing I could find, basically brown duct tape, guys. So some brown duct tape from Ace. This thing's been on here for quite a while now. Got a few miles on it. And then you just start by putting it on. Okay. Start wrapping it up. Bolts. My final piece on here until I get the thickness of what I actually want for this thing. And then squeeze that guy together. Okay. Alright. That is how you're making this. Now, last thing I did on this, so now I've actually got it done. You can see I added a little bit of black paint, distress marks, and then left the burns on there from the weld itself. Alright, so then what I did was to make it street legal, drilled a couple of holes in here, put my license plate on, and then have tied those down with a couple of zip ties. That works awesome. And on the end, I added an LED. First, I added this LED strip. So I had and this actually has a turn signal on each end. This is like $9 on eBay, I think. It's got a turn signal on each end. It has a brake light, right? So that turns on and off. And then I didn't like how the turn signals looked on it, to be honest with you. But I do like the brake light because it works a lot better than the brake light from the show. That's actually not very bright at all. Brake light works awesome. Turn signals were kind of sketchy, so then I came up with the idea of using the Moto Gadget, these little Moto Gadget guys, which are awesome, absolutely incredibly bright. So I definitely recommend getting these. They're pretty pricey, but again, you can't really tell that they're on there until they're actually blinking. They actually look pretty good. Last thing on the mounting of the crossbow, on this crossbow mount, and this is actually pretty important. You got to know where these grommets are actually going to go. Okay. It's kind of up to the crossbow. The crossbow itself from the show, you can't get anymore. It's been discontinued. So I got one that actually looked pretty close at a sports shop nearby me, and kind of mounted these in a way that it would fit with the grips of the crossbow. So the crossbow goes in a certain direction, the ones in the show. Yeah. So this is the crossbow I ended up getting, and it ends up mounting in this direction. Okay, so you can see I ended up making it mount like that. So this is pretty solid. So the way I mounted this was with the second from the right behind the trigger. That'll help keep it from going off if I'm riding with it loaded and cocked. Anyway, so the first one comes in underneath the handle of the stock, barrel stock here, and one behind the trigger, and one here behind the grip, and then one back here behind the actual stock itself, in front of the stock itself. And I push down on here. This is how it looks when it's mounted on. You know, it comes down, and these guys here line up just to the right of the blinker and the edge of the actual mount itself, and fits on there pretty good. Okay. The only thing is this guy is going to fly off when I'm riding down the highway. And I guarantee you, I've not obviously seen the show, but there's no way that they're riding around with a crossbow that costs as much as the one is that they had on the show, which is about $800 or so when it was new, without mounting it down. And then of course they obviously mount it down, then they pull up, cut the seat, and then they unhook it, and then as they pull up, then Daryl Dixon reaches back behind and grabs the crossbow and pulls it off and fires it off. So to hold this thing down, what works pretty good is just a couple of black bungee cords. Okay, so you just hook these on to the actual mount itself as best you can, and I start in the corner over here. End up looking something like that. Once you start riding, go slow with it, and check it. Go up a little bit faster and check it, etc. But I've gotten a point with mine. I just leave it on. I don't even take it off anymore. So unless I'm killing a zombie. But okay, all right. Well, good luck with that.